On New Year's Eve, when fireworks stitched light into the winter sky and the city held its breath between endings and beginnings, a single sentence, quiet, intimate, and devastatingly tender, rippled across fan communities. "I bought an engagement ring on New Year's night." Attributed to EUNWOO, the words landed like a spark on dry paper. Within minutes, timelines ignited. Was it a confession, a metaphor, a misquote, or a truth whispered too softly to be contained? What followed was not just a rumor cycle, but a collective pause, a moment where fans, media, and observers tried to read the temperature of a man known for his immaculate composure. This article explores why that sentence mattered, how it spread, and what it reveals about celebrity, privacy, and the fragile line between hope and projection, without chapters, without sensational shortcuts, and with careful attention to what is known, what is speculated, and what remains respectfully unconfirmed. The first wave began with fragments. A fan account posted a recollection from a private setting, no audio, no official transcript, just a paraphrase that carried the weight of sincerity. Screenshots multiplied, translations diverged. Some rendered it as a literal purchase, others as a symbolic act marking commitment to the future, career, or self. In the absence of confirmation, meaning bloomed wildly. Yet the reason it resonated so strongly was simple. New Year's Eve is a threshold, and thresholds invite vows. EUNWOO's public image has long been defined by balance, an artist who moves seamlessly between idol, actor, and global ambassador while guarding his personal life with restraint. That restraint, paradoxically, amplifies curiosity. When someone so careful appears to let slip a sentence that sounds like a life-altering decision, audiences listen harder, not because they feel entitled, but because they sense rarity. In celebrity culture, rarity is oxygen. Industry watchers quickly urged caution. No official statement emerged. No paparazzi photos of jewelry boutiques appeared. No brand tie-ins followed. Silence in this context was not confirmation or denial. It was a reminder that absence of evidence is not evidence of absence. The story's power lay not in proof, but in possibility. Why an engagement ring? Because rings carry centuries of symbolism compressed into a circle: continuity, promise, return. To say one was purchased on New Year's night is to entwine private intention with a public calendar. It invites interpretation even when interpretation is uninvited. Fans did what fans often do at such moments. They mapped the rumor onto memory. Past interviews where EUNWOO spoke of values, scenes from dramas that explored devotion, lyrics that hinted at patience and timing. The narrative assembled itself not from facts but from emotional coherence. Critically, many fans also drew lines. Threads reminded others to avoid invasive speculation, to respect boundaries, to celebrate happiness without demanding access. This restraint is part of a maturing fandom culture, one that recognizes that love stories, if they exist, are not content pipelines. They are lives. Media outlets faced a familiar dilemma: amplify and risk distortion, or contextualize and lose clicks. The more responsible coverage did the latter, framing the sentence as unverified, emphasizing symbolism and highlighting the absence of official confirmation. They asked better questions. What does it mean when a public figure's quiet moment becomes public property? How do we talk about romance without turning it into surveillance? There is also a cultural layer worth noting. In Korea, New Year's carries both introspection and renewal. Purchases made on that night can be practical, ceremonial, or deeply personal. A ring could mark engagement, but it could also mark a promise to oneself, a gift to family, or a prop for a role. Language nuance matters. Translation compresses context. Context expands meaning. As days passed, the rumor did not explode, it simmered. That too was telling. Explosions demand spectacle. Simmering suggests contemplation. Fans shared messages not of entitlement but of goodwill. If he's happy, we're happy. That refrain is not performative, it is protective. It acknowledges the asymmetry of attention and tries, imperfectly, to rebalance it with respect. What if the sentence was metaphorical? Artists speak in images. Buying a ring could describe committing to a new chapter, professionally or personally, without a partner at all. New Year's resolutions dressed in romance language travel further, but they are not lies. They are poems mistaken for receipts. What if it was literal? Then the most ethical response remains the same: patience. Joy does not require proof to be honored. Privacy does not require denial to be respected. The healthiest fandom posture holds both truths at once. In the end, the story says as much about us as it does about Cha Eun-woo. We live in an era that confuses closeness with access, affection with entitlement. Yet moments like this, handled gently, offer another model, one where curiosity coexists with care, where celebration does not trespass, and where a single sentence can be allowed to remain a sentence, not a summons. As the calendar turned and the fireworks faded, the ring, real or symbolic, returned to its essential shape, a circle without edges. Perhaps that is the lesson. Some stories are complete without being opened. Some promises are strongest when they are kept quietly. And sometimes the most meaningful New Year's declaration is not the one we confirm, but the one we choose to honor from a distance. The distance itself became part of the story. In the days after the phrase circulated, the silence around it grew almost eloquent. There were no hurried clarifications, no playful deflections on live streams, no cryptic emojis meant to tease. The absence of reaction created a vacuum where interpretation could have spun out of control. Yet something unexpected happened instead. The conversation slowed. Fans began to speak to one another rather than over one another, trading reflections instead of theories, emotions instead of evidence. In a media ecosystem addicted to immediacy, slowness felt radical. Observers noted how rare this was. When celebrity romance rumors surface, they often follow a predictable arc: leak, frenzy, denial or confirmation, brand recalibration. This time, the arc bent inward. The phrase, "I bought an engagement ring on New Year's night," became less a headline and more a mirror. People projected on it their own thresholds: hopes deferred, promises considered, relationships imagined or remembered. The sentence traveled because it was unfinished. It asked listeners to complete it, even if only privately. Industry analysts pointed out another layer: timing. Cha Eun-woo stands at a crossroads familiar to artists who began young and matured under constant visibility. Choices made now about work, rest, relationships carry a different gravity. Fans know this. They have watched him grow, not just in roles and accolades, but in tone. Interviews over recent years have leaned toward reflection, gratitude tempered with boundaries, ambition paired with care. In that context, the idea of a ring, again literal or symbolic, felt aligned with a broader narrative of intention. There was also a quiet pushback against sensational framing. Comment sections filled with reminders that love is not content, that milestones are not owed to an audience. This was not scolding, it was stewardship, a fandom protecting both the artist and itself from the exhaustion of endless speculation. In doing so, they modeled a healthier relationship to celebrity, one that acknowledges affection without converting it into surveillance. Meanwhile, cultural commentators revisited the language itself. In Korean, expressions about buying, preparing, or holding something for the future carry emotional subtext. Translation can flatten that richness. What reads as a definitive act in English might be an idiom of readiness, a way of saying, "I am preparing my heart." Nuance matters, especially when stakes feel personal. As the new year settled into routine, the rumor did not vanish, it transformed.
It became a reference point in conversations about maturity, privacy, and choice. Not did he or didn't he, but what does it mean to choose carefully in public? The question lingered because it had no single answer. If there is a conclusion to draw, it is not about a ring, it's about restraint, by an artist who guards his life, by fans who learn to celebrate without consuming, by media that can choose context over clicks. In that restraint lies a different kind of intimacy, one built not on access, but on trust. And so the New Year's sentence remains suspended, neither confirmed nor denied, neither exploited nor erased. Perhaps that is fitting. Some declarations are meant to mark time rather than announce it. Some promises are strongest when they are kept quietly. And sometimes,
some fans began revisiting past moments with new eyes. Old interviews resurfaced, not to prove anything, but to trace a pattern of thought. EUNWOO had often spoken about timing, about not rushing life even when the world pushes forward. He talked about responsibility, about wanting to be someone who could protect what he loves rather than simply admire it. Read now, those words seemed less like promotional sound bites and more like a philosophy quietly lived. Again, this did not confirm the rumor, it contextualized why people found it believable. The entertainment industry, too, watched carefully. Brands, producers, and insiders understand how fragile public perception can be, especially when romance enters the frame. Yet nothing shifted. No schedules changed, no endorsements paused. This continuity subtly reinforced the idea that whatever the truth, it was being treated as personal, not performative. In an era where even private milestones are often monetized, that choice carried weight. There was also an emotional duality among fans that rarely gets acknowledged. Alongside happiness and curiosity existed a trace of melancholy. Not jealousy, but the quiet realization that time moves forward. Idols who once felt eternally youthful grow, choose, and step into lives that no longer revolve solely around the stage. For longtime supporters, this can sting and soothe at once. The rumored ring became a symbol of that transition, beautiful, inevitable, and slightly bittersweet. Critically, the conversation avoided naming anyone. No speculative partners were elevated into targets, no imagined narratives were forced onto real people. This restraint prevented harm before it could form. It showed an understanding that love stories, when guessed at, can easily become burdens. By refusing to guess too loudly, the community protected not just EUNWOO, but anyone who might exist beyond the frame. As weeks passed, the phrase began to feel less like news and more like a line from a novel, one readers return to because it captures a mood. New Year's night, a ring, a decision made when the old year exhales and the new one inhales. Whether factual or figurative, the imagery resonated because it spoke to choice made in quiet certainty, not spectacle. And perhaps that is why the story continues to hold attention without needing escalation. It does not demand answers, it invites reflection. In a culture saturated with reveals and reactions, this non-event, this almost confession, stood out precisely because it resisted completion. If Cha Eun-woo ever chooses to speak plainly about it, the world will listen. If he never does, the moment will still have mattered. Because for a brief time, a single sentence reminded everyone that behind the flawless visuals and carefully curated roles is a human being standing at the edge of a new year, capable of hope, commitment, and private resolve. In that sense, the story has already reached its most meaningful point. Not in confirmation, not in denial, but in the shared pause it created, a pause that allowed admiration to mature into respect. And as the year unfolds, that pause may be remembered as the moment when silence said enough, and the future, like a ring's unbroken circle, was allowed to remain whole. That shared pause continued to echo long after the rumor itself stopped trending. It subtly reshaped how people spoke about Cha Eun-woo, not louder, but deeper. Conversations drifted away from speculation and toward meaning, what it takes to choose something lasting in a life built on temporary schedules, hotel rooms, and borrowed identities. For an artist whose career depends on constant reinvention, the idea of commitment, again symbolic or real, felt almost radical. What made the moment endure was its contrast with expectation. The public is used to grand announcements, press releases timed to the minute, statements polished until they reflect nothing human at all. This was the opposite, a line that sounded almost accidental. No stage lighting, no prepared smiles, just a sentence that suggested a decision made when no one was watching. In that contrast, fans found sincerity. Cultural critics began framing the moment as a case study in modern fandom dynamics. Years ago, a similar rumor might have triggered backlash or demands for clarification. This time, the prevailing response was acceptance of ambiguity. That shift did not happen overnight. It is the result of long conversations about boundaries, mental health, and the cost of constant exposure. EUNWOO's silence did not inflame those conversations, it seemed to validate them. There is also the matter of masculinity and vulnerability. Male celebrities are often encouraged to project certainty without softness, success without doubt. A statement about buying an engagement ring, especially framed around New Year's Eve, carries emotional vulnerability. It implies hope, risk, and a willingness to anchor oneself to something beyond applause. Whether metaphorical or literal, that implication resonated with audiences navigating similar questions in their own lives. Interestingly, the phrase began appearing in unexpected places. Handwritten notes shared online, captions under winter photos, even fan art that depicted a figure standing alone underneath fireworks, a small box in hand, the future stretching wide. These were not attempts to claim a narrative, but to honor a feeling. The story had transcended its source and become communal, shaped by empathy rather than entitlement. As time passed, the absence of follow-up became its own message. It suggested confidence, not the loud kind, but the quiet assurance of someone who knows that not every truth needs immediate validation. In a world that equates visibility with value, choosing privacy can be an act of strength. And so the New Year's ring remains where it belongs, at the center of a circle of interpretation, not pinned down, not pried open. It exists as a moment of possibility, a reminder that even the most visible lives contain rooms the public will never enter. Perhaps years from now, the sentence will be remembered differently, confirmed by hindsight or reframed by context. Or perhaps it will remain exactly as it is now, a soft echo from a winter night, meaningful precisely because it asked for nothing in return. Until then, the story continues not through revelations, but through respect. And in that respect lies a quiet agreement between an artist and those who admire him, that some promises, whether to another person or to oneself, are strongest when they are allowed to begin in silence. Silence, over time, transformed from absence into atmosphere. It wrapped the story in a calm that felt intentional, even if it was never declared as such. In that calm, EUNWOO's public appearances, unchanged, steady, professional, took on a slightly different texture. Fans watched the same gestures, the same smiles, but now with an added layer of awareness. Behind the practiced ease was a man capable of holding something precious without displaying it. This is where the story subtly shifted from rumor to reflection. People began asking themselves why the idea of an engagement ring mattered so much to them. It wasn't about possession or loss, it was about reassurance. For many, EUNWOO represents stability in an industry defined by volatility. The notion that he might be choosing something enduring, love, commitment, or simply a grounded future, felt comforting. It suggested that constancy is possible even under relentless spotlight. Media scholars pointed out that this moment highlighted a rare inversion of power. Usually, narratives are extracted from celebrities, shaped by headlines and consumed rapidly. Here, the absence of confirmation returned power to the subject. By saying nothing more, EUNWOO dictated the pace. The story could not move forward without his consent, and so it stayed suspended, respectful of that boundary. There was also an emotional undertone among fans. Many fans who grew up with him are now facing their own thresholds: marriage, long-term partnership, life-defining decisions. The New Year's ring became a quiet companion to those experiences, a symbol that growth does not mean abandoning one's past, but in integrating it. Supporting an artist no longer meant freezing him in time, it meant allowing him to move forward. As the year unfolded, new projects were announced, schedules filled, and the industry's rhythm resumed. Yet the sentence from New Year's night remained tucked into collective memory, resurfacing occasionally, not as breaking news, but as a reference point. "Remember when?" it would begin, followed not by gossip, but a pause, a smile, an understanding nod. In the end, perhaps the most striking aspect of this story is that it never demanded resolution. It did not need a photograph, a name, or a press conference to justify its existence. Its value lay in what it revealed about restraint, maturity, and the evolving relationship between public figures and those who admire him. If Cha Eun-woo did buy an engagement ring that night, then the choice was his alone, and the respect shown afterward was a gift. If he did not, if the sentence was symbolic or misinterpreted, then the response still mattered, because it proved that audiences are capable of holding uncertainty with grace. Silence, over time, transformed from absence into atmosphere. It wrapped the story in a calm that felt intentional, even if it was never declared as such.
And so the narrative settles into something quieter than news, but more enduring. A reminder that not every meaningful moment has to be proven to be true in order to be felt. Sometimes it is enough to know that on a night devoted to beginnings, the idea of commitment, however defined, was spoken aloud and then gently protected by silence. As months continue to pass, the story's afterimage remains, faint, steady, and strangely grounding. It does not compete with louder headlines or dramatic reveals. Instead, it lives in the margins, surfacing when discussions turn to longevity, intention, and what it means to build a life under observation. In that way, the New Year's sentence becomes less about a single night and more about a mindset. Fans who once measured closeness by frequency of updates began measuring it by trust. Trust that Cha Eun-woo would share what mattered when and if he chose to. Trust that admiration does not require access to every chapter. This shift is subtle but significant. It marks a relationship evolving from consumption to companionship, where support is offered without demands. There is also a poetic symmetry to how the moment arrived and stayed. New Year's Eve is universally understood as a pause between breaths, one year exhaling, the next inhaling. To associate that pause with the image of a ring is to suggest continuity rather than climax. No fireworks needed, no countdown required, just a decision held quietly while the world looked elsewhere. In retrospect, the absence of drama may be the most meaningful detail of all. It allowed space for dignity, something often eroded by constant speculation. It allowed the artist to remain whole, not fragmented into rumors. And it allowed fans to practice something rare online: patience. Whether the ring exists in velvet or only in metaphor, its impact has already been felt. It softened conversations, encouraged restraint, and reminded many that public affection can coexist with private resolve. That balance is fragile, but when it appears, it deserves protection. So the story continues, not forward but outward, into how people talk about love without claiming it, into how they celebrate growth without fearing change, into how a single sentence, spoken or remembered, can invite reflection rather than intrusion. And perhaps that is the quiet legacy of this moment, not confirmation, not denial, but a shared understanding that some beginnings are most powerful when they are allowed to remain just that, beginnings, unforced, unframed, and free to belong to the person who made them. That understanding gradually settled into something almost comforting. The story no longer needed momentum, it had found stillness. In fan spaces, mentions of the New Year's ring appeared less as speculation and more as shorthand for maturity, an unspoken reference to a phase of life where choices become quieter but heavier with meaning. It became a way to talk about growing up without announcing it. What is striking is how the narrative resisted being claimed by any single interpretation. Some continued to see it as a literal step toward marriage. Others held on to the idea of symbolism, a promise to protect one's future, to anchor oneself amid constant movement. Neither side tried to overpower the other. The coexistence of interpretations felt intentional, as if ambiguity itself was the point. This moment also subtly reframed Cha Eun-woo's image, not reinvented, not dramatized, just deepened. The flawless visuals and disciplined professionalism remained, but now they were accompanied by the suggestion of inner deliberation. Fans didn't see less of him, they sensed more, and sensing, unlike seeing, does not require proof. In interviews that followed for unrelated projects, listeners noticed how carefully he chose his words. Nothing overt changed, yet everything felt slightly more grounded. When he spoke about time, responsibility, or the future, those themes carried extra resonance. It wasn't that he was saying something new, it was that people were listening differently. From a broader perspective, the story highlighted a rare success in modern celebrity culture, a rumor that did not spiral into damage. No reputations bruised, no imagined third parties dragged into the light, no forced narratives imposed. Instead, there was a collective decision, conscious or not, to let something personal remain personal. That restraint is easy to overlook, but it is not accidental. As the year moves forward, new headlines will inevitably take center stage. Projects will premiere, awards will be announced, schedules will fill. The New Year's ring will recede further into the background, yet it will not disappear. It will remain as a reference point, a quiet example of how a single sentence can reshape tone rather than direction. And maybe that is enough. Maybe stories do not always need conclusions to be complete. Sometimes their value lies in how they change the way we look at artists, at fandom, at ourselves. In that sense, the moment has already done its work. On a night defined by endings and beginnings, something was said or remembered that invited people to slow down and respect the unseen. Whether that ring exists in reality or only in imagination, its circle has already closed around something real, the idea that commitment, in its truest form, does not ask to be watched. Even now, when the story is retold, it is rarely framed as breaking news. It is told softly, almost like a memory borrowed rather than owned. Do you remember when Cha Eun-woo said he bought an engagement ring on New Year's night? The question is usually followed not by shock, but with silence, a reflective pause that says more than speculation ever could. The moment has aged, and in doing so, it has gained depth. What this reveals is a shift in how audiences relate to time in celebrity lives. Not everything has to unfold instantly. Not every hint requires immediate clarity. In allowing the story to stretch, people found room to breathe, to accept that some answers belong to the future or may never arrive at all. That acceptance is rare, and it is fragile. There is also something quietly cinematic about the image that remains, a city alive with celebration, fireworks echoing in the distance, a man standing still in the middle of motion, choosing something small yet heavy with meaning. Whether that choice involved another person or simply himself is ultimately secondary. What mattered was the act of choosing. In many ways, this is why the story continues to resonate more as time passes. It is not anchored to scandal or revelation, but to intention. And intention does not expire. It lingers, influencing how moments are interpreted long after they occur. Fans who once feared change now speak about it differently. Growth is no longer framed as loss, but as evolution. Supporting Cha Eun-woo no longer means holding him in a fixed image. It means trusting him to move forward with care.
That trust did not come from a statement or confirmation. It came from restraint, his and theirs. If one day he shares the truth behind that New Year's night, it will be received not as an answer demanded, but as a gift offered. And if he never does, the story will still stand, not incomplete, but intentionally open. Because in the end, the power of this moment lies in what it refused to become. It did not turn into spectacle, it did not demand ownership, it did not collapse into certainty. Instead, it became something quieter and rarer, a shared understanding that some parts of a life, even a public one, deserve to remain untouched. And so the sentence continues to exist exactly where it belongs, between years, between meanings, between what is known and what is felt. A beginning without noise, a promise without witnesses, a circle drawn not for the world to see, but for the one who chose to draw it.